Welcome to Young Adults Learning Evil, hosted by Nyrule. Young Adults Learning Evil is a gritty documentary podcast that explores the intersectionality of class, wealth, and race, and how it has played out over the past 400 years within a community. The podcast gives the world insight into how urban trauma affects a marginalized Black community inside one of America's first planned cities, New Haven, Connecticut. New Haven is also the home of one of the world's most prestigious and powerful institutions, Yale University. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Go to Apple Podcast and give us a rating. Visit our Patreon page and learn how you can support and stay in tune with the movement. Peace.
All right. So I'm gonna start recording now. All right. So, how's your day been so far?
It's been nice. It's not too hot. It's been okay.
I hear that. Yeah. So you just coming off a big victory.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm still high. I am still high, even though we have a lot more work to do. We made a crack in the door. Now we can ask to be invited in or kick it in, whatever. But we got the crack there.
The first question, what's your favorite thing about New Haven?
I don't know. I think it's just the people. It's where I was born and raised. It's my whole life I spent there, aside from, temporarily moving in and out of town. But my heart's always been in New Haven. I just love that community that we used to have, and I'm always longing to get that back.
Definitely. Do you mind going more into detail about how important this new police accountability bill is and what's in it so people can understand more about it?
Okay. There's quite a bit of stuff in it. It's like about 70 pages. So there's a lot of stuff in there. I'm sure people are not aware. But if I can remember off the top of my head, one of the biggest things, and which was the most we got most opposition against, was the immunity, qualified immunity, which allows, if a person has been treated in malicious or, just a real bad way, that they can now find some kind of justice through the civil litigation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the biggest things that, because police have been just doing all kinds of things, treating people any kind of way, disrespect, maiming people, killing people, all of this with impunity. And there's never been anything that people feel that they could do about it. So most people just kind of like normalize that kind of oppression. And it's just something that I never could. So one of the things this bill is going to do is now make police accountable for their egregious behavior toward citizens. It's going to require 5-year mental health assessments to make sure that officers are still mentally stable to perform their duties. For me, I think 5 years is too long to wait. 5 years with someone who's unstable, mentally unstable, and walking our communities with a gun is, for me, very dangerous. We don't wait 5 years to have physical examinations. So why would we wait 5 years for mental? But, it is what it is. That's what the bill is now. Hopefully they'll recognize that it needs to be more regular. It now tells police officers that they are mandated to report something that one of their coworkers may be doing as far as abusing people. And they can no longer just, keep the blue wall of silence up and not say anything. They now have a mandate that they have to intervene, act to stop it, and also report the abuse. Otherwise, they face prosecution themselves. But we also I'm saying we like I wrote the bill, but I just feel so much a part of it. But also in the bill is what they call whistleblower protection. So now that we're mandating that officers must report abuse from other fellow officers, there has to be some protection for them, because we have recognized that when you tell on another officer, that you end up being retaliated against. So we want to make sure that, those who really want to come forth, feel free to come forth. Because the reality is, all cops are not bad. I believe the majority are really, really good cops.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to protect those good cops who really don't want any part of the abuse. But because of the retaliation and the blue wall of silence, they've been kind of quiet about what they're seeing and hearing. And so when people say good cops, I always feel like, well, good cops would not allow this kind of stuff to happen without coming forth and saying something. But I also understand what they face. And so now hopefully they'll feel like they have some kind of protection when they come forth to report what other officers are doing. One of the big things that you're not hearing that much in the news is that this also goes for correctional officers. They were also part of the bill. Many of them may not even be aware of it yet.
Oh.
But yes, they're going to be held accountable also. And so that's going to be huge in corrections because they've done so much behind the scenes that no one would ever be aware of it. They're not out here in the public abusing, so people wouldn't know it unless someone from the inside tells you.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are going to be held accountable for what's going on. And as well, the officers who stand by and allow it to happen will also have to pay. So I can see some real consequences coming out of that, especially when we have a place like Northern Correctional, who the United Nations just cited in February, stating that the behavior that they have toward people in Northern facility, which is a supermax, it can be called torture.
Wow.
And it's because in the way that they treat them. So this has already came up. It came up just before the pandemic. So we didn't get to continue in our struggle to close down Northern. But this organization that I'm a part of, Stop Solitary Connecticut, that's one of our basic goals. Shut down Northern, stop the abuse, stop the torture of our citizens, because the long-term effects of what they're doing to people is sometimes some people just can't get past it. They can't recover from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see people like Khalif Broder, being put in solitary for a period of time. And when he came out, like he said, he smiled like everything was fine. He tried to be happy, but inside he was torn up. And then he ended up committing suicide. We know suicides happen inside of the Supermax in Connecticut and in some of the other prisons also. And so we're going to be more on top of some of that stuff now that they are included in this police accountability bill. We're also going to be looking at policing. It should be professional. They say they're professionals. We want to make sure that they're professionals by following national guidelines on how they should be behaving, what their profession should look like, and try to work toward being accredited. Because one of the things also in Connecticut, very few prisons very few police departments are accredited, and absolutely none of those in urban centers, New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, Waterbury, none of those are accredited.
Wow.
So we're looking for, if you say you're a profession, then you should be professional.
Standards.
And yes. And as a profession, say like doctors and lawyers, counselors, like I'm a clinical social worker, I had to go to school, be educated, take all these courses, get a degree. Beyond that degree, I had to be licensed by the public health.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they want to make sure, and you have to have, if you work for someone, they have to have insurance on you for any mistakes you may make. And if you work on your own, you have to have insurance.
That's true.
Doctors have to have insurance. Lawyers have to have insurance. I don't understand why police officers, they claim their profession, why they don't feel that they need liability and some kind of protection against anything that they may do.
Especially if they say it's so dangerous.
Yes, they say it's dangerous. And the reality, policing is dangerous, but it's not only dangerous for the police officers. Police officers are not the only ones who are worried about going home. Our everyday citizen in urban centers, many of us are also feel endangered by having the police in our community.
Exactly.
And we also would like to come home too. I know I have 7 sons, and when they were growing up, and I still, even though, they're adults, I still want to see them come home to their children. So police are not the only one who want to go home at night. And we fail to talk about that.
Exactly. Yes. So
there's so many things in the bill, but like I said, I can't remember them all offhand, but maybe as we go on, I can think about more of them. But there's a lot of really, really good stuff in the bill. I don't think it should hurt anybody. Any good officer should not have anything to worry about, because it's really to protect us from the bad officers, the ones who think that they can treat us any kind of way and kill us with impunity. And it was so important because we've had in Connecticut alone 71 police shootings, and they've all been exonerated. There was only one that actually went to court, and that was in New Milford years ago. I don't know if you remember it, where the officer in New Milford had the suspect on the ground, face down. He had his boot print was found on the person's shirt.
Wow.
And they shot him in the back. And that's the only time that they've had one that actually was prosecuted, but he never went to jail. But I mean, at least we got that far. So with the old police accounting bill that was passed a few years ago, they thought that a resolution for that is to have state's attorneys from other districts handle cases when a police shooting. For me, I thought that was kind of silly, but that's me, because I saw state prosecutors all working together, all, and they work with the police. So what difference does it make that you say, we'll take a New Haven police shooting and take it over to Waterbury and think you're going to get a different outcome?
It's exactly.
So we've tightened that up now. And that's another one of the things. We've tightened that up. Now, it will not be regular state's attorneys who will handle it. There's going to be a special independent inspector who will be looking at police shootings. Like for me, like I said, there's more things to be done. Hopefully, some of the things that I'd like to see happen can also happen. Because one of the things I like to see is not only that an independent inspector handle police shootings, but that they handle police cases. Because we've seen time and time again, police are getting arrested for all kinds of things, domestic violence, just all kind of criminal behavior. And yet when they go to the state's attorney whom they work with, they're always getting off. So we actually need an independent inspector to also look at those cases.
Those things are really important, especially the history of police brutality inside like the inner cities have been perpetuated because of that,
Yes. I mean, I myself was a victim. My kids have been victims. My daughter, a few years ago at a traffic stop, was pulled out of her car, thrown to the ground. She was in the car with her boyfriend. He couldn't do anything because they had a gun on him. So he had to watch them manhandle his girlfriend, and he couldn't do anything. And she was traumatized. She had bruises on her arms for months. Her daughter, of course, is traumatized by what happened to her mom. We never look at any of that stuff. A lot of the times when we talk about police brutality, we're focused on the people who were shot and killed. There are so many people who have been brutalized by police officers who didn't die, and no attention is given to the trauma that they continue to face. 3 years ago, I was on the green doing absolutely nothing, gave no cause for a police officer to bother me at all. And several police officers manhandled me, put me in cuffs, put me in the wagon, and I did absolutely nothing. Beyond the trauma that I had to face of having that done to me is the trauma that I know my daughter, one of my daughters and sons was there. They came running toward me, and I knew I had to stop them and get them in control, or it would have been bloodshed on the green that day. And so I just told them, I said, I'm okay. Don't give the police any reason to hurt you, because I know they would love to have done that. And so, but I think constantly about how they feel even to this day that they couldn't help their mom. But I'm glad they didn't. And I tell them, I'm glad that you listened to me, because I don't want to have the trauma or a traumatic memory of seeing one of my kids shot and killed on the green trying to protect me. And so 3 years later, I continue to be traumatized by that incident, but nobody talks about those. They talk about the people who were shot and killed. But, that brutality reaches so much further.
Yeah, and that's true. Because how I was connecting with you earlier in regards to one of my friends who was active doing some activism for Fred James, you know, and like when he died, you know, when someone close to you gets killed by a police officer, you know what I'm saying, that creates like a lot of animosity in you because it's powerlessness. What could you do about it? You know what I'm saying?
Right. You can't do anything unless you risk. You most likely it won't be a risk. You could end up dead.
Exactly.
And how does that help anybody? When I you know, one of the cases that really has stuck with me, and I just have a gut feeling. It's this elder. I don't know if you remember. I think it was in 2004.
Inside the towers over there by the hospital?
Yes, this young officer, he hadn't even been on the force 2 years. His last name was Rosa. I think he's probably still on the force because they never get rid of those people. They stay on the force for some reason. And my sister lived there, and she had told me, and I talked to some of the people in the building, and they said he was such an arrogant person, but he was getting ready to move into the building. And the elders had said, you know, he was so arrogant. He treated them so disrespectfully. And on this occasion, he was getting on the elevator with a dog. And this elder man, Mac Lucky, said, I'm afraid of dogs. And, you know, with his arrogance, he decided he's going to stay on the elevator with the dog anyway. And so, according to the story, the doors closed, and within minutes, the doors opened again, and Lucky was on the floor dead. And the officers claimed Mr. Lucky lounged at him with a knife. Okay, later they found a knife. Well, at least they said they found a knife by Mr. Lucky's hand. But when they did fingerprints, there were no fingerprints. So, I mean, do we automatically believe that that's what happened because the officer said it? And so that's just another case of police not being held accountable for what they do, and they still work in our force. I mean, what kind of a message does that leave that officers can do these things and still be working on your force, and then you're supposed to trust and care about, you know, police officers?
Yeah, so their family, his family still living out there. He got kids, he got grandkids, and they know that was his fate.
I wonder about, I think about that from time to time, like, you know, whatever happened, because I didn't hear about any of them coming forth, you know, protests or anything. So I always wondered, like, what happened? Did he have family here, or maybe they lived somewhere else? I don't know, because that was another case just swept under the rug.
Yeah, one of many, but so this whole bill is bringing things one step further, so it doesn't keep on going the way it has been going, but it's a lot of damage that has been done already.
Right. And how do you rectify that? I mean, how do people heal from all this trauma that they've had to face year after year after year?
It's true.
So I don't know. Because one of the things I find about us is, people are always saying, oh, how resilient we are as a people. Yes, we're resilient. Thanks to our ancestors, but there's a difference in surviving something and actually healing from it. And I think we survive a lot, but I don't think a whole lot of healing goes on.
We can't thrive until after we heal. So we'll just keep on just enduring. We just put our head down and we're enduring. But until we like heal from the past and really rectify like what has happened to us, we're not gonna be able to move on to the future.
Right.
And like that's kind of like one of the inspirations of like my project. It's like I'm putting everything into a whole lens. So I'm putting like how the past affects the future, you know? Because like,
of course,
what you're talking about as far as like this whole police accountability bill, like I got a whole episode that describes how, you know, since like the beginning of this colony, the different black codes that they created to keep black people oppressed, whether you were free or as a hostage, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And all these things had just been perpetuating. So what you're saying is like a culmination of almost 400 years of police oppression of the black community in New Haven, especially. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. And that's why I tell people when I'm out there protesting, I'm not protesting George Floyd. I'm protesting 401 years of sanctioned by our government, legalized abuse and killings of our people.
Documented.
Because like so many people, their protest right now is about George Floyd. Seeing that video, I never saw the video, and I don't want to see it. I haven't watched the video since they choked Eric Garner to death. And I didn't realize the impact that would have on me watching it. I guess because I didn't think that they was going to show the whole episode on TV. And then by the time I seen it, it had so deeply impacted me. I said, I can't watch any more videos. So there's many, many videos I haven't watched. So I was in pain and anger and rage long before what happened to George Floyd. As a matter of fact, long before what happened to Eric Garner. I mean, some of my earliest is that 7-year-old Ayanna Stanley sleeping on her couch, innocent child, sleeping on her couch. The police raid the place, throw in smoke bombs so they don't even know what they're shooting at, and just start shooting and killed the innocent 7-year-old laying on the couch. And no one was held accountable. This is the kind of stuff that you can't get past that rage. It's been with me so much longer before this happened with George Floyd. And so this victory for me is huge. But some people may think, oh, it's a little thing. This is huge because we're finally at least got our foot in the door and where we can make police accountable. Now, will that stop all these cops who think they can operate outside the law? No, because there's always going to be those attorneys who are going to work hard to free them and not even care, not even have the moral fortitude to think about, they took somebody's life. I shouldn't be trying to protect them. But you're always going to find those attorneys who will. And I think as long as those lives are brown lives, many people can take on that chore of trying to protect these officers and not think twice about it because it's not their lives.
That's true. They feel it's pushing the status quo. And like if you see like the climate right now, like the political climate, that's just like the law and order that the president is talking about. So they're pushing that same narrative, so they'll feel inspired to do so.
And you got to remember, when you know your history of policing in the first place in the South, it began as the slave patrols out there making sure that none of the Africans got away from the plantation. And they were given a badge and everything just like they are today. So that was all about maintaining white supremacy. If you look at today in 2020, that's all policing is about, maintaining white supremacy. So I always have a hard time understanding how our brown officers put that uniform and wear it so proudly, unless they don't recognize that what you're doing is maintaining white supremacy. It's never about protecting brown lives. It's about protecting white lives and their property. Always has been. And until we change the culture of policing, I don't care what color face you put in that uniform, your job is to maintain white supremacy. And I think maybe if more of them thought about that, they might say, why am I proudly hurting my own people? But that's part of the social conditioning that America put on us 401 years ago. And sadly, many of us are still colonized with that mindset.
Yeah, they want to protect the dominant culture even through injustice. So they're feeling that like that's the pattern of behavior, and they're like accepting how they view our community. So they're taking that whole narrative on. So even when they look at black on black crime, they're trying to make it a solely personal accountability issue, when in fact it's a societal issue.
And first of all, I don't know where black on black crime came from anyway, because black people, because you're in proximity of other black people, kill black people. Exactly. Just like white people in proximity of other white people, Italians, Irish, Jewish, they kill their own too. So, but we never say white on white crime, even though we've had all these mass shootings with white people slaughtering tons of people. And yet you never heard anyone say white on white crime. I don't know why we adapt to all of these things that white America feeds to us without thinking, giving any kind of thought. Yeah. So why are we saying black on black crime? What about when white people killing each other? How come that's not white on white crime? We don't ask any questions. And along that trail is another, this is just a part of another journey that I'm on. How we just accept what white America tells us. First, they called us, well, we went from, the niggers and coons and all that. But then they decided we were going to be colored. And then later they decided, nah, they're going to be Negroes. And then they're going to be Afro-Americans. Nah, maybe African-American. And then they decide, no, they're going to be Black. And we just adopt all that. Why? Do we get to tell them who they're going to be?
Exactly. And
we have a lot of stuff that we don't even question. We are still bound by that white social conditioning. We don't even question it. Like, my skin is brown. Our skin is brown. Why are we calling ourselves Black? It works for white America, because if we say we're Black and then other brown people say they're brown, or they're all these other wherever they live at, whatever island they're, we're all this, we're not all African people, then that helps them with this where they call themselves the majority.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the world majority. Matter of fact, a lot of people came to this country and decided to be white because they seen the privilege that whiteness gave them.
Exactly.
But the dominant people around this globe are people of color, brown people, all different shades.
That's the fear, and that's what drives them to behave in the way that they do sometimes. So, and like, especially with these policies in America, you know, they were all in fear of like this, the 2040, when the majority of the people will be Black and brown people, and the white people will no longer be the political majority. And that's what drives the anxiety of the political right wing.
Yes.
And all these different policies of xenophobia are driving that, because that's a fear based off of them, their population not being a dominant culture anymore. But we had to endure that and go through that, but it's unacceptable for them. So you see the double standards that they have.
It's just like you look at with this police accountability bill and how the police, just losing that privilege, are going absolutely crazy. Like, did you not hear that this is about making you accountable? The bad cops, not the good cops. Cops talking about, they're going to drive cops out of Connecticut. They're not going to want to be here. People are not going to want to sign up for the police department. Why? Because you have an accountability placed on your profession, which you should. All I can say to that is bye, if that's what it means. But they're going crazy, just losing that privilege.
Yeah, the police chief in New Haven said it was driven by hate. He said hate can't drive out hate. That's what he said.
Oh my God. And I just was so saddened by that, because he had talked about publicly, you know, they did the kneeling to the community to show that they're, I guess, gonna respect the community. That's what I thought the message was. And then there was a lot of conversations around how to make the police department more transparent and how do we build relationships. And then to turn around and say that this bill was driven from hate. No, it was driven from the desperation from people that are getting abused and dying, pleading somebody do something to help save our lives. That's what it's about. It has nothing to do with hate. Now, if you had been at the protests that they had in Hartford, now that I think was generated by hate. You know, the way they were out in the street chanting "Back the Blue," putting their fists in the air and being very aggressive and hostile. The environment, the whole air you could feel was them against us. It was like, no, if it was any hate driven, it was on the other side. And there was actually police chiefs, former and current, who actually supported the bill because they wanted to see a community that respected their police force, and knowing that the only way they're going to get that is when they change the culture of policing. They actually wanted it. And then to have him say it was made in haste. They started working on a police accountability a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. That was never complete. So all they're doing is strengthening what they had in place. So it's been years in the making. There was no haste about this at all. They had a 12-hour listening session, which is if we didn't have COVID, it would have been a 12-hour public hearing where people could have came in. I was on that listening. There were plenty police officers and chiefs from all across the state who had plenty to say. before this bill was put into place. There was a lot of people from the community, different organizations. So it wasn't no hasty thing that nobody had input. Anybody who wanted input had the opportunity. They also had where you could send in public testimony if you didn't want to get on the listening thing. And people had the opportunity to do that. So I don't see why they say that people were locked out of the process. No one was locked out of the process unless they locked themselves out. I wanted this bill very, very badly. So I did everything that I thought I had to do to make sure I was heard. I sent in a testimony. After I was on the 12-hour listening. After that, I sent in another testimony to respond to some of the things that went on in the session. I went to support Gary and Robin, who I think are some fierce warriors up in Hartford, and I just have so much respect for them. Mm-hmm. I made sure that every time they was up in Hartford working, that myself and a bunch of other people came out to support them, let them know this burden is not yours to carry. You're trying to help us. We're all going to be here to support you. I was up there till midnight when the House was voting on it. And then when it went to the Senate, I said, I'm not going to leave until it's passed. And so I was up there to 4:00 in the morning till it passed. And I was dedicated, committed to that because I wanted Robin and Gary to walk out those doors and know that they were supported every step of the way. And I wanted to see their faces when they got their victory because I knew they were going to get it. Mm-hmm. They've been through so much to get this bill, so much pain, frustration. You hear a lot of privilege and racism, all of that. People who they thought was going to support them that didn't. It's been a journey, believe me. And I've been on that journey with them. So I know they went through a lot. And if people understood that when you want your legislators to do something to represent you, you have to be there too. You can't just say, I want this and then go sit down and wait for it to happen. So I just applaud the strength of Robin and Gary. Anybody who knows what they went through should applaud them every day.
Yeah, they put some work in. We do appreciate them for the
work.
Community. All right, so
yes.
Now I want to get